everyone, it has been a long time since we last spoken about pointe shoes, and a lot of things have changed for me. So the first and biggest update is gainers do not work for me. The thing that really made me never want to pick up gainers again was how obnoxiously loud the shoe got. I don't even remember them being that loud when I was first using them, but for some reason at some point, I just felt like they started squeaking and creaking every time I went up on pointe. After a few instances and then squeaking, I just decided to give up on them. But even before the squeaking became a big deal, I was having fit and comfort issues with the shoe. So gainers have built-in padding within the box. So when you first put the shoe on, it feels deceptively comfortable because there's just so much padding. But after a few minutes of dancing, there is just something about it that is very uncomfortable. And I was trying to pinpoint like which part of my foot was not happy with the shoe, but I don't know, maybe it's just like the whole entire box, because I can't really say what is wrong, but all I know is that like it does not feel good after a few minutes of dancing in them. Because I was never really comfortable in the shoe, I really had a hard time articulating my foot through the shoe, which means that I didn't really have a smooth roll up or roll down. I didn't really feel like I had control of the shoe, so overall it just was not a good shoe for me. Gainers are pretty expensive, and this is the second time this has happened to me where I used the shoe for a week or two and then they start just feeling uncomfortable. I just don't know if I can give them a third try. I don't know, maybe I'll wait for them to come up with like a new box, but right now they are just not working for me. And to be honest, I'm kind of over this whole spending over $100 on shoes thing and them maybe fitting and maybe not. Like, why don't we start 3D printing pointe shoes at this point? So I had to go get my feet refitted for a new pair of pointe shoes, and this time I was given the Suffolk Reign. I hope I am pronouncing that right. I feel like I've seen multiple people pronounce it Suffolk, but Google is telling me it's Suffolk, so you might hear me saying different things in this video. I don't remember if Suffolk was my first or second brand that I tried when I was new to pointe shoes, but I definitely have tried a Suffolk pointe shoe before. And this was the Suffolk Spotlight, and what I got from my pointe shoe fitting was the Suffolk Reign. And as you can tell, they look very different, and the sizes are completely different. So in my old pointe shoes, I was a 7.3X. In my new pointe shoes, I'm a 6.52X. So this was too long and too wide for me. And I know pointe shoe sizes don't really translate when you go from one model to another model, but these shoes were way too big for me. I don't know why I was even allowed to walk out of the store with them. I mean, the size was very close to what my current size is, but unfortunately, in the pointe shoe world, being close to the right size is not the same as just having the right size. Just because I was close doesn't mean that I could dance in these. I remember these being incredibly uncomfortable, and as a teenager, I thought that pointe shoes were just supposed to be uncomfortable. That's kind of the bad thing about being new to pointe. It is hard to figure out if it's you, or if it's the shoe, or if it's supposed to be uncomfortable because everyone says it is uncomfortable. But now that I am more experienced, I realize that, yeah, these were just way too big for me. So anyways, back to the Suffolk Reign. At first, my new Suffolk, how do you pronounce this again?
Suffolk.
So at first, I was very, very uncomfortable in these shoes. I felt like they were just way, way too tight. And then after, I think a week or two, when they softened down a little bit more, they just became perfect for my feet. I wouldn't say I have severe bunions, but I would not categorize them as mild either. So this part of the shoe was not accommodating my bunions at first, which made Pointe so painful to dance in. But after putting water and just spraying down this area with rubbing alcohol, it was perfect. The shoe just molded to my feet essentially. And now it really just feels like the shoe that I was meant to have the whole entire time. One really interesting thing about these pair of shoes was the fitter recommended that I should try the light shank. So when you buy Pointe shoes, this back part is called the shank and it supports your feet. You can buy the shank hard, medium, or light. It just depends on what you want to do with the shoe. If you're doing a lot of jumps, for example, you would want something very supportive. But if you're doing things that require a lot of like feet articulation and your feet has to roll through a lot, you want something much softer. And I haven't really gotten a light shank shoe because I never felt confident in my feet strength. But with these shoes, the light shanks just worked out really well for me. I felt like it followed my foot really well. I was able to roll up and roll down from Pointe really, really smoothly. These shoes definitely felt like a major upgrade after my Gaynor Minden shoes. I got a lot of compliments when I was wearing the Suffolk. But the downside to the light shank is that the shoe died very quickly. So these shoes died in around a month, which I felt like is very fast considering the amount of Pointe that I do, which is very little. A normal shank Pointe shoe would last me around 2 months or maybe just a little under 2 months, but these died in like half the time. So when these shoes died, I couldn't reorder them from my local dance studio because they were out of stock. I finally was able to order my new Pointe shoes from a site that I've never used before. It's called dancesupplies.com. The physical store is somewhere in the East Coast. One thing that did kind of bother me about my experience with Dance Supplies is that their website did not say that my shoe was out of stock. I actually bought it from their site because it made it look like my shoe was in stock. And after making the purchase in a day or two, someone from the store emailed me and said it was out of stock, which if I would have known, I probably wouldn't have bought it from that site. But I will say that the shoe came very quickly. It came in 6 weeks and I thought it would take much longer. The current estimates for people to get their shoes is around 8 to 12 weeks right now, which is pretty unfortunate. But overall, the shoe came much faster than I anticipated and I'm pretty happy. My biggest regret is just not buying a second pair when I made that initial order, because if I put in an order now, it's probably gonna take another 2 months or so. So while I was waiting for my new pair of shoes to arrive, I decided to use a pair of very, very old Russian points that I have had for maybe 7 years. And I realized something pretty funny when I pulled out my Russian points. This is my Russian Pointe, and this is the new pair of Pointe shoes that I have gotten. And maybe it is just me, but they look like they're exactly the same shoe. The shape of the box looks exactly the same to me. Am I crazy or are you all seeing that? I mean, look at this. They just look like the same pair of shoes and maybe with different outside fabric. Okay, let me throw in the gainers to really drive this thought home. So you see how the tip of the box tapers down in this kind of fashion? To my untrained eyes, this and this looks like they are exactly the same. But this, which is the gainer, looks very, very different. And I went online and I learned that actually these are essentially the same shoes. I cannot confirm if this is real or if this is rumored, but apparently Suffolk released some new models of Pointe shoes, and all the new models essentially are clones of the current Russian Pointe models. So again, I don't know if this is true, but that's just what I saw. This makes sense to me because it is very, very hard to get Russian pointe shoes now. And if you are following current events, you can guess why. Because these are essentially the same shoe. When I used my 7-year-old Russian pointe shoes, they fit fine. These shoes were so old that I didn't really have ribbons or elastics for them. So I decided to just reuse the ribbons, some of my old shoes. I don't know, after paying like over $100 for shoes, I really don't feel like spending another few dollars on some accessory to make the shoe work. I feel like the shoes should have just come with ribbons, and it kind of bothers me that it doesn't. But anyways, I decided to just reuse some old ribbon on some old pair of pointe shoes. So depending on how you have attached your ribbon to your old shoe, for me, I'm not very meticulous with my sewing, so it was pretty easy for me to deattach the old ribbon. After you deattach your old ribbon, you're gonna see that the part that you've sewn over has essentially lost its integrity. What I like to do is just snip the bad parts off, and it is just as good as new after that. So before I end this video, I want to talk a little bit about my current progress with pointe. Currently, I have around 3 30-minute pointe classes and a 1-hour pointe class. But a few months ago, I started realizing that I didn't feel like I was being challenged enough. So I decided to wear my pointe shoes to my normal technique class, and that has been a very, very unique challenge. Anyways, this video is long enough, so I'll end it here. Thank you so much for listening to me today. I will see you all in the next video. Bye, everyone.